Welcome back, everybody, to another Epidose. These crazy people that talk about eating meat all the time and can't stop. So today we got a special guest. We got Brian Cruz. I was introduced to him from Lady Carnivore. So he's a trainer, and he came here to tell us a little bit about what he does. So without further ado, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, there, Brian?
Where do I start? I've been a trainer for 20 plus odd years. Um, I used to work in the legal field, and legislation here in Ontario had changed so much that I had to find a new either path or a new area of law to work in, and I decided I was going to become a trainer instead. So that's how I started. Um, and it's funny, I think I've told JC or Lady Carnivore probably in, I don't know. Did I actually tell you exactly how I got into carnivore and all that?
I don't remember if I'm honest.
Okay. Anyways, funny story. So, working in the fitness industry, carbs, fats, proteins, you need them. You need to eat breakfast every morning. And I took a certification course in nutrition, and basically they were saying the World Health Organization recommends 55% of your calories should be coming from carbs and 33 to 30 from protein, and the rest of that is fat. Keep your fats low because it's bad for you, all that stuff, right? And hey, I believed it, I professed it. I was a fitness consultant, which meant I sold personal training and I sold nutrition programs to people at the local gym that I was working at. And so everything about it made sense to me, right? It's what I had done, right? And it was funny because even then I was kind of like, the Canada Food Guide, which is probably not much different than what happens in the States. Same thing. It was just like, you got to eat lots of carbs, lots of fiber, lots of bread and cereals. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So then fast forward to maybe three and a half years ago, I get a client of mine, and very intelligent man, very wealthy. He's like, hey, have you heard of this carnivore diet thing? And I'm like, no, what is it? And he's like, well, you just eat meat. And I look at him, I'm like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you can't. You got to have like salads or something. You have to have fiber. You have to have something to help you digest, right? And I had done my research. I knew that certain, fruits like pineapples, for example, will help you digest meat and whatnot, right? So I was like, well, no, you gotta have a little bit of something. And he's like, no, man, you don't. And I was like, whatever. So I just kind of ignored it, right? And he was telling me how his son had lost a lot of weight doing it. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, yeah, he lost a lot of weight because he's cut out a whole macronutrient. That makes sense, right? He's at a calorie deficit. I get that. That's why he's losing weight. In my mind, I'm always looking at, well, what's going to optimize your health? What's going to optimize your performance, right? Because I don't just train the average Joe that wants to lose weight. I train people to optimize their health, to age gracefully, right? Not just about weight loss. And you'll talk to JC. I'm not all about weight loss. I'm about, health first. And if weight loss falls under the umbrella of health, then I'm okay with that. So, he's like, go check out Sean Baker. Go check out all these other carnivores. I'm like, sure, whatever, right? And prior to that, I had experimented with paleo. I had experimented with intermittent fasting under the umbrella of the Warrior Diet. And it was funny because paleo, fine, easy. Wasn't hard, whatever. I went back to my regular eating, and but I actually enjoyed intermittent fasting, so I actually ended up applying it. And one of the things for me was I always wanted to experiment with the things that my clients are coming to me with, right? And so intermittent fasting came up because during the celebration of Ramadan, I had a lot of Muslim people coming into the club asking, well, I want to lose weight. And I was like, okay, well, you got to eat every 3 hours. You got to do this. You got to do that, right? And they're like, well, I can't. Ramadan, I gotta fast. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, ironically, I read an article on Ronda Rousey and how she followed the Warrior Diet and my intermittent fasting, but you have to have breakfast. And so I was all this stuff, right, reading. So anyway, so I had applied it. I was sold on intermittent fasting. It was great. One of the things I knew about intermittent fasting was that if I wasn't looking to lose weight, or if I was trying to maintain my muscle mass, I had to maintain my calorie intake because I don't want to be in a calorie deficit based on performance, based on the way I look aesthetically, right? So anyway, so my client, his name's Richard, he's like, well, this carnivore thing. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a calorie deficit. So he says, Sean Baker. So I check out Sean Baker, and I'm like looking at it. And this is at the time when he was just going at the vegans, right? Which I'm okay with, right? But he was just going so hard. And I was like, okay, well, I don't, it's almost like, how people, and I hope I don't offend anyone, how people shut the door to Jehovah Witnesses? That's what I felt he was doing, like throwing his carnivore diet in people's face, right? And I was like, dude, so I kind of, I put it away for a little bit. And again, Richard keeps on bringing up this carnivore diet. I'm like, fuck, okay, let's see if I can join other Facebook groups and at the very least get other people's perspectives. So look. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So I tell my wife, I go, you know what? I'm going to do it. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it strategically. At this point, I was only eating 2 meals a day. So I was like, okay, well, my first meal is going to be fats and proteins. My last meal of the day is going to be carb heavy, right? As I weaned myself off, because in my mind, if I need my carbs for my 3 a.m. workouts, right? So, okay, good. One day she flips it on me. She's like, I don't feel like cooking. Can I order shawarma for you? I know I'm very detailed when I tell my story, so I apologize. So she orders me my shawarma. I'm like, okay, loving my shawarma, eating it away, right? And it's not bad. It's not processed, right? It's shawarma. I'm eating it. I'm enjoying it. About an hour or two later, my stomach distends. And I was like, are you kidding me? No way. And I was uncomfortable. I was really uncomfortable. And so I just turned to her and I go, I'm done tomorrow. I'm doing it tomorrow. And she's like, what? I go, no, I'm cutting carbs out because this is ridiculous. It can't be coincidental that I've been eating this way structured. And then all of a sudden I flip it and all of a sudden I'm distended. I'm not feeling comfortable. Like the only thing that changed was that I had my carbs early in the day from a fast, right? So there's nothing in my stomach. Give me the carbs. All of a sudden my digestion's saying, what are you doing? Right? So anyway, so yeah, I did it. I did it for a month and I was like, this is awesome. And it's like, I've had other clients try it, do it, subscribe to it. They love it. They do it temporarily, whatever, that's fine. So anyway, so one of the things that I explained to them, I go, within the first week, you're going to lose water weight. I'm not going to pretend that this is a whole magical thing. You're going to lose water weight. I lost 8 pounds in 3 days. But knowing what I know, I was like, I didn't lose 8 pounds of fat. I lost 8 pounds of water, right? Done. So after that, I call it, the week 2 scenario. Week 2, I was like, I probably need fiber because my bathroom breaks, they're not pretty. But it only lasted a little while. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, I know what's wrong. Let me work it out. Let me, microbiome and all that stuff. Let me ride it out. And from that point on, like, let's say week 4, I was perfectly fine. Everything was fine, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. And so now the question was, okay, so I feel great. My digestion's back to normal or normal, different. What's my energy going to be like now? I want to hit my weights hard. I train hard. That's me, right? I train, and I don't advocate for this to people because this is just me. I train anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. That's me. Okay. So this whole idea of, well, that's endurance. You need carbs. You need this. So I'm going to put this to the test, right? Dude, I was PRing every week almost. And I had buddies of mine who were at the gym and they were like, you're not eating carbs? I'm like, nope. And I'm just flinging weight. Like, I was doing Olympic lifts at the time, flinging weight, I'm motoring through kettlebell programming, metabolic conditioning, all that. I'm not dying. It was great. Anyways, that's how I was sold to it. And then I'm going to say in December, because of the holidays, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go back to eating normal. So I go back within a week. I was like, this is horrible. My stomach, my digestion, I felt like crap. My sleep was horrible. I was like, forget this. So I just went back and haven't looked back. So that's my story.
Great story, man. And I say the more details, the better. So,
All right.
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because you got such an extensive background with helping other people and being very conscientious about what you eat. It's that contrast of just shifting into it. And I think a lot of people, commonly were either keto or paleo before, and they tried carnivore, and even though they had been on a diet where they felt better, they saw that there was like that sort of next level in it for them when they just ate meat.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then when you introduce a food like that, like I think we've all had a story where we ate something and we go, oh yeah, I feel bloated, man. It's not digesting right. It's like, and I think it literally comes down to, most of it, when you eat meat, it goes in your stomach, and then most of it's absorbed in the small intestine. Very little goes down to the lower bowel or the large intestine. And when you eat stuff with plant material in it, it winds up going to the large intestine. And then you have that reaction there, because really, stuff really starts to decay there. So you're going to get gas and stuff like that. And of course, I think that this whole thing about eating fiber has been so overblown. Their bodies just go like, all right, just keep cramming fiber in. I'll do what I can. And then when we stop, we're like, whoo, and then I think literally the large intestine probably relaxes and gets a little smaller. And then if you hit it again, it's like, wait a minute, we were
Oh
doing
yeah.
so good.
Well, I had to wrap my head around the whole no fiber thing because it made sense. Fiber is present, it helps clean you out,
Mhm.
right, colon cancer, all that stuff, right? And um, I remember going onto one of the Facebook groups, and some lady had posted. She's like, "Why is it that our society is so obsessed with controlling our bowel movements?"
Mm.
She's like, where our bodies, unless you're broken, unless there's something actually medically wrong with you, there's absolutely no reason to think that you need help. And I was like, that's true. Like, seriously, like, I mean, I was born perfectly fine, presuming, and everything functions the way. So why would I need fiber, right? So anyways, it's that's one of the things that kind of like, I was like, okay, that makes sense, right?
Well, and I think a lot of that comes from the fact that constipation is so common in people, and some people do get relief from constipation with fiber. And
Yeah,
then with this whole upside down thinking that we're supposed to eat plants all the time, naturally, you're supposed to, how could you eat plants and not wind up eating fiber? It's like almost impossible.
right.
So everybody just suffers from that bad information, and it's like, well, once you realize that you don't have to eat fiber, if you just eat meat, unless you eat a lot of cheese or something, you're not likely to get constipated.
Yeah.
So,
I can't remember, I would have to look up the research study, but I did see this thing that said basically fiber is like eating steel wool for your intestine. It's actually abrasive to your gut lining. And
mhm.
so a lot of people experience digestional distress once they switch over to carnivore because their intestine literally cannot absorb nutrients. It's so roughed up from all the fiber they've been eating for so long. It takes a while for all of those, what are they called? The villi in the gut lining to heal in order
Yep.
to start absorbing the nutrients.
Yeah, if you read a book like The Fiber Menace, you find out that fiber really is an irritant, and so like anything, it can stimulate the production of mucus and stuff like that can help you pass. But then you look at the big studies where they added high fiber to people's diets that had idiopathic constipation. You find out that like 24% of them experienced any relief, which means the vast majority didn't, and most of them it made things worse, because when you add the solid fibers and fiber that's indigestible, you just make the stool stronger.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
it's like reinforcing mud. It's
I I
just
think I think it has a lot to do with the way our North American society is. It's like it's what I call the Tim the Toolman Taylor, approach, where bigger's better, stronger's better, right? So it's like, well, a little bit of fiber would help you push, your bowel movement through. Okay, great. Well, let's have a lot. Let's have a big salad, right? Like, why not? 10 grams is good. Let's have 100 grams. Like, I think we're very excessive as a society in North America. So I think that's where the problem really comes from, as opposed to, because, like, I mean, I don't have a problem. I have clients that they're like, well, I had one client, she's like, I love cabbage. I'm like, okay. She's like, but my stomach's distended, right? I'm like, I see your your eyebrows pop up, right? Literally, she would have cabbage every day, right? And so I was like, okay, do me a favor. How about this? I'm not saying don't have cabbage. Have it every other day. Can you do that? She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay. So she did it, and she's like, I'm less bloated. I'm like, cool. I go, trust me, I go, just humor me. Let's do it every 3 days. All of a sudden, her bloatedness disappeared. Eventually, by day 4, she was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not having any more cabbage. I'm like, good idea. I was like, why do you want it? I
Yeah.
just like the way it tastes. I'm like, yeah, but look how it makes you feel. She's like, yeah.
I can't relate to that at all. Like my stepmom would make boiled cabbage for dinner. It's like eating farts. I'm just sorry. Like, how is that good?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
judge that so much.
I don't know. Maybe she, I don't know, the way she prepared it. I don't know.
At its
right?
best, it's like crunchy water. Like
Yeah. I've got a buddy of mine who's a personal trainer, right? And he's very well known in the community and all that. And one day he comes in, he's like, oh, my stomach. I mean, what's wrong, man? He's like, him and his wife had gone out to, this is pre-COVID, had gone to this, I don't know, I think it might have been a Christmas party or something. He's like, oh, we just like ate all the broccoli. And I looked at him like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, we just ate it all, and now we're paying for it. And I couldn't understand how he couldn't realize what the real problem was. It wasn't I ate all the broccoli. You ate broccoli. Bottom line, right? And he's just, oh yeah, we're both paying for it. I'm like, well, then just stop eating broccoli.
Who goes
Like,
to a
it's just-
party and it eats broccoli?
But this is because he's a trainer, right? We're gonna eat healthy. We're gonna eat broccoli. Awesome.
Yeah.
While
I think-
everyone's eating cheesies.
I think most people don't even realize like broccoli is like an invention. It's not a food that's been with us very long.
No, yeah.
It's more popular because of the great marketing behind it than it is for any other reason.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it comes from the mustard seed.
Yeah, it's
Mustard
a
seed
from the
plant, yeah.
mustard family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and going back to that, obviously when you're bloating and distended and stuff like that, these plant materials are fermenting in your lower intestine, right? Your large bowel. And who hasn't heard the story that if you eat meat, that chuck roast is just gonna rot in your stomach or rot in your digestive tract, and so we were it was, I don't know if you guys have heard that, right? Like
I have, yeah.
yeah, it'll
Yep.
calcify in your colon, right? Well, meat never makes it to the colon unless there's something wrong. But it's all the other stuff that goes in your colon and ferments. It's the plant material. It's the exact opposite of these sort of pop tails, or I don't know what you call them. What do you call these things? These bro science that gets passed around.
Well, one of the things I've never understood is like when I was in high school, we took chemistry and we talked about, what's the most acidic substance out there, and like battery acid and stomach acid were the most acidic. And I'm like, so how do you eat meat and it's sitting there to rot when you put it in a vat of acid? It just makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you start chewing and the enzymes in your saliva start breaking it down.
Yeah.
And then we actually have the most acidic stomachs of almost all the animals out there. The only other ones that come close are the scavengers, like vultures and stuff like that. So
Wow.
we can actually tolerate more fetid meat, a higher bacteria load in our meat than a dog can, or a wild wolf can.
Wow.
So I don't know, next time you see a coyote snacking on some roadkill, compare that to what you're capable of. Yeah, I'm
Right
way more
on.
cautious about what I feed my dog than I want what I eat. So
Same.
anyways, so tell us a little bit about training. I mean, your average person, what do? You talk to them, find out what their goals are, and then go from there, or you specialize in something, or
No, I don't specialize in anything. I just like, what? It's a passion of mine. I was actually going to walk away from it about 3-4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, I was just going to take over my dad's pool service business, and I was just going to say bye-bye. And actually, it was my clients that about a month after I had quit the gym, they started calling me. They're like, listen, the guy that they put me with, I don't want to train with them. Can we follow you? And so I actually ended up having to look for a gym that would allow me to bring clients and train there. And so since then, that's what's happened. And then the cool thing was well, during the pandemic, we closed down in here in Ontario last March. So I gave it a month because, again, first time, right? What's going to happen? And about a month later, they all called me and they're like, "Can we start doing online stuff?" And I was like, "Okay," because I don't like it. My claim to fame, if you ask any of my clients, is that I'm very particular with technique and form, right? Because for me, if your technique is on point, you can lift less weight, therefore there's less chance of injury, number one. Number two, you're going to recruit the right amount of muscles, or the right muscles that you want to, when you are going through proper range of motion, all that stuff, right? So safety aside, it is way more effective when you focus on proper technique, etc. Now, having said that, I do teach people how to do cheat sets, but that's only when I'm comfortable and I know that they won't hurt themselves throwing stuff around, right? So anyway, so when I approach a person with training, because I had been selling personal training for about 3 years when I was in the industry, in the gym industry, it was always about, well, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to accomplish, right? And then what I would do is I would do a series of movement assessments, and it wasn't anything special other than like, can you squat for me? Let me see what your squat looks like. Okay, cool. Can you do a push-up for me? Let me see what your push-up looks like. And based on those little basic movements, I'd be able to assess and say, okay, this is weak. There's an imbalance here, this, that, and the other. And so for the majority of the time, everyone came in, I want to lose weight, for the most part, right? I want to lose weight or I want to burn fat. And so kind of like with what I had done with JC, I worked on her posture without her realizing I was working on her posture. So the same thing. So the same thing with my clients or the people that were buying personal training. I'd be like, oh, you want to lose body fat, you want to change your body composition. That's great. But I would make notes and say, okay, they're a little kyphotic. We need to work on this. And it's because based on those imbalances, their training would not get past maybe 3 or 4 months. Because what would inevitably happen is you start to get stronger, you start to load the weight, and if your body's not moving properly, you start to develop tendonitis wherever, hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, whatever, right? So again, my job was the longevity from a business perspective. I wanted to make sure that these clients were never going to stop wanting to train. And the only way to do so was to make sure that there was longevity, right? So with my clients, I love training people. I enjoy it. I'm actually really grateful that I came across JC because, like I had said to her, I wasn't a fan of training people for competitions, right? For a couple of reasons, right? It's very easy to slip into body dysmorphia or eating disorders and whatnot, right? And so for me, it was like, I mean, JC could probably remember, I was like, well, why do you want to? And she said, well, it's because something I've wanted to for the longest time. If she had given me anything less than that, if she had given me something like, well, I want to see what I can do, or I want to look really, really good, right? I would have just said, listen, just book a photo shoot, make that as if that was your competition day, and then we can work together that way, right? Because there is a grayer area when it comes to training, and I find that it's very easy to fall into, like I said, that body dysmorphia or start to develop an unhealthy relationship with food, right? So that's how I look at things, right? So it's always about the why, even though I don't like using that term. It's about the why, and if I can kind of come to terms with, if I agree with the why, then I'll take them on, right? It makes it easier because then I can understand where to take them next, as opposed to, like, I mean, I had a client once come in at the gym and she was like, I don't want to weigh more than 100 pounds. And I was like, okay. And she was like this short Eastern European lady. And I was like, well, but why can't you be 100, like 101? She's like, no, it has to be no more than 100 pounds. And so I was like, again, she was really small. I did a body fat / muscle mass composition test on her, she had very, very little muscle mass, and she was older. And my concern there was, you know, if you have little muscle mass, your bone density is the next thing that's gonna go, right? And again, it's all about health for me from the get-go. So I was like trying to get her to understand that at your height, you should at least weigh 110 pounds, at least, right? This is inclusive of muscle and proper fat. And she was like, no, it can't be. And I go, okay, listen, what if you weighed 120 pounds, but you looked like you weighed 95? She's like, no, I can't. I have to weigh less than 100 pounds. And I was just like beside myself. I was like, okay, we can try. And that was about as much as I could really promise her. So it's, like I said, there's a lot of things that I have to consider as a trainer, and it's not myself. Most trainers should be considering that as well. They need to. The problem with being a trainer or the industry is that it's feast or famine. And so if someone says, "I want you to train me," they're like, "Yeah," and they'll promise you the world. They'll say, "Yeah, I can do that. I can do this. I can do that." You know, whether they have the experience or not, whether they have the knowledge or not, they'll take you on, right? And yeah, I personally think that's wrong. So that's me.
So, do you get many clients that just have arbitrary goals like that? Like they just set a fixed number on something, or is that unusual?
It depends, right? Like, I mean, I usually try to redirect people, right? So if they're like, well, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I want to look, I want to look smaller. Okay, again, what does that mean? So the easiest thing for me was to be like, okay, well, what famous person would you like to look like, right? And at the very least, that would give me an idea, right? And then I'd be able to say, okay, well, then that's about this, and that's about that. This is how much muscle you would want to put on. This is how much body fat you would have to lose. But in the end, it's all about the nutrition. I can train you however you need to, or I can design a program and say, yeah, this is what's going to give you the body. But in the end, if their nutrition isn't where it's supposed to be, carbs, fats, proteins, doesn't matter what it is that you're putting in your body, it's going to throw things off, and you're never going to achieve your goal, right? This morning, I was having a conversation with this yogi that follows me, and I don't even know how it came up. She was like, yeah, I'm vegan, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'm trying. And then in the same breath, she said something like, yeah, I was training this morning and something about 30 repetitions. And I was like, why are you doing 30 repetitions? Why are you vegan? And she's like, well, I heard 30 repetitions will give you toned muscle. And the term toned is a very gray area in the fitness industry, because it doesn't mean anything, right? So I tried to explain to her. I go, yeah, and I explained to her. I go, so toning really means muscle building or muscle retention while losing body fat. And then I carefully tried to phrase it. I go, as a vegan, it must be really tough to burn off that body fat. She's like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, because of all the carbs you're having, like your body is going to use the carbs first, and you're basically just eating carbs. She's like, no, I'm not eating carbs. And I kind of like, again, I was just like, oh, I might be wrong then. Maybe you know something that I don't. Well, I don't eat cereal. I don't eat bread. I don't. As simple and complex, they're carbs, and your body's going to use that up before it wants to use your body fat. So your training and cardio must be really tough, because you got to burn through that first before your body even wants to try to burn off that fat, right? And that's just simplicity. Like there's other things, my heart rate is at this, and this is where I'm burning body fat, blah, blah, blah. I try to keep it as simple as possible. And so in the end, I was just like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't talk about this anymore. I don't want to upset you. Because again, and I've said in conversation with JC, I've said, no one wants to be told that they're wrong, right? It doesn't matter who you are. No one likes to be told that they're wrong. So I just kind of just stepped away, and I said, well, I was just curious why you're doing 30 reps. So I just left it at that.
So how did you and JC meet? How'd you get connected?
I can't remember who.
I I came across, well, I can tell her, yeah, I can say about how I met her. I came across her page a couple of times, and I honestly, I thought it was kind of cool, what Lady Carnivore, because it was very, it was reminiscent to Lady Bathory, and as a kid, I was intrigued by vampires and stuff, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And so, but I never followed her because I was like, maybe I won't, not just yet. And then I don't know, out of the blue one day, I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna follow her, and yeah, that's that. And then I can't remember exactly how we started talking about your training though.
I think I know I messaged you a couple times about your morning routine of drinking coffee. Um, and
Yes.
I think that's how we started talking. And then you were asking about my bikini competition because at the time I had found a keto coach, but I wasn't happy with them. And so I think I mentioned that to you. And yeah, Brian really made me convince him that he should take me on and that I had good intentions with my competition. But that was like what made me think like this is a really good fit because I wouldn't want somebody to coach me who's just in it for, you know, the one extra client, but
The money?
yeah, well, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you legitimately care about your clients and you care that they're doing the right things for the right reasons. And I really respect that about you.
Thanks.
That or he's just plain hard to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works.
So I like to say that, whatever it is, as far as getting healthy or being fit or whatever, I like to say it's got to be like 90% diet. I mean, I like to say that you got to eat so you can work out rather than work out so you can eat. I mean, well, what would your estimation be about how important the diet is compared to exercise?
I'll probably annoy a lot of trainers or fitness enthusiasts. I usually don't care about what your diet is because the hardest thing I find in my 20 some odd years is to routine, the routine of going to the gym, the routine of lifting weights, the routine of doing your cardio, if that's something that's you subscribe to, right? So for the most part, and like I said, I don't talk about diet with my clients at all for any reason because you know what? Google exists. And if you really wanted to find out how to lose weight, you could just Google that and they'll tell you. I want to lose body fat, they'll tell you. What's the proper calorie intake I should be taking? They don't need to hire me to tell them that, right? So for me, I get them invested in their training program, right? So they're getting stronger, they're getting more flexible. This doesn't hurt, this, that. And then eventually they're enjoying the training. They're noticing that they're getting stronger. Maybe they're losing a bit of weight, right? Then they'll be like, well, I've stopped losing weight. Okay, well, that's probably your diet. But at this point, we've already been training for 3 or 4 months now, right? So they've still gotten some amount of results, but now it's stagnated, which is inevitable, right? But people need to realize this again. This is all my opinion. People need to realize that what you're doing is a body modification, right? No different than getting your nose pierced, nipples pierced, ears pierced, surface piercings. You are creating some sort of trauma to the body, and it has to conform to it, right? And so if you want to change your body, well, you've got to break a couple of shells. You got to do a couple of things that are tough that you don't do normally, and it's going to take a while for those bad habits to heal. If you want to look at it from that analogy, right? So I get a lot of people coming in. They're training great. They're eating well, relatively well, right? They're eating better Monday to Friday. All of a sudden, Friday night comes. They're out drinking. Cool, you're drinking. You had a fun time, and it takes them about 2 or 3 days to recover, right? Monday was your workout. You know what's happening to your body? Your body's still recovering. Your body's not going to recover from this workout. It's recovering from the alcohol that you put in your body, right? And I don't mean to be a jerk about it to them, but I try to be very, very, forthcoming with them. And it's just like, well, that's what you did, right? Your liver isn't functioning at 100% now because it's trying to siphon out all this alcohol. So how is your liver going to function properly? How's your stomach going to digest properly? So Typically, that's how I approach it. And so I try to explain to them that once they buy into the training, they'll eventually want to buy into the diet, right? And the only obstacle there is their patience. That's probably the biggest obstacle anyone is going to be faced with, is their patience. I wanted it yesterday. Well, you didn't put on all that weight yesterday. You put it on over a course of 20 years, 15 years. So it's going to take a while, right? So
Yeah, that makes sense from your perspective. I mean, people come for you for training. They want to know how to do what they need to do, right?
yeah.
And then
I'll kind of echo. Sorry, Tom.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll kind of echo that a little bit, because I know there's one time in my life I hired a personal trainer about 3 years ago, before Carnivore, and I was not eating well. But because I was spending the money and seeing the personal trainer and working out really hard, I was realizing, oh my God, I can't eat like this anymore. And it did follow in that I worked out, I was enjoying how I felt working out, but I was not enjoying the recovery, exactly like you said. So I went that way too. I mean, again, I didn't find carnivore quite yet at that point, but I did eat a lot better because I was training. And actually, that I have a question about that. How would you, for someone who isn't working out at all, what's your method, or maybe it depends on the person, of how you kind of get them started in that habit of working out, if maybe it's just hard for them to just commit to even a couple days a week?
Well, typically I don't try to sell them on training, right? So if they're coming to me, they've already decided that they want to start training, right? Now with Zoom, actually, what I do offer is, why don't you join my class, right? So it's less expensive, right, to do a class than to do one-on-one. And so in that, or even if it was in person, at the very least, then the pressure is off of them to always be on, like to perform. Does that make any sense, right? Because they could kind of blend in with the group, right?
Sure.
And so I usually will say, come in once or twice a week and we'll do this. And one of my favorite tools to train people is actually kettlebell training. Because it's so versatile. And JC knows, I've kind of pushed it on her, but only because it is such a versatile tool. Like my clients, I'll say to them, I go, I want you to train with me because you want to train with me, not because you have to train with me. And so I'll teach them how to swing a kettlebell, snatches, cleans, presses, all that stuff. Teach them, a couple of metabolic conditioning programs. And if they miss a day, right, I'll message them later, do 100 swings today. They can't say no. They've got a kettlebell at home, and they've got if you do 10 swings every minute on the minute, that's 10 minutes. Don't tell me you can't do that, right? So I try to corner them into it with logic, really, right? Don't tell me you can't do that. I had a friend of mine who I worked with at the gym. She was on mat leave. She was getting ready to come back. And she's like, I haven't touched a weight and this and that. I go, you still have your kettlebell? She's like, yeah. I go, put it in the kitchen. And she's like, okay. And I go, every time you walk past it, do 10 swings. Right? Something's better than nothing. Right? And so
really
eventually she started doing that. And now she's come back to training, right? I see her every Sunday. Right? But like I said, if you maintain that habit, you will not lose it, right? It goes back to that whole adage, use it or lose it, right? So I'm very sneaky.
Sneaky
that way.
Hard to get
sneaky that
sneaky.
way, right? Yeah.
I definitely thought after my competition, I was like, I'm gonna want to take time off the gym. And then it was like the next day I messaged Brian and I was like, so what are we doing today? Yoga? Like, it was just so instilled in me that like we work out every day. We do something every day.
That's awesome.
I did yoga.
Yeah. You know what? I subscribe to the fact that our bodies were meant to work, right? We were meant to work. Kind of along the same lines as with carnivore, right? We were meant to eat meat, right? You want to throw garnish? By all means, throw some garnish. You want, a little bit of this? Fine, by all means. But Your main meal should be animal fat, animal protein, because that's what we were designed to consume, right? That's how we thrive. By the same token, we were meant to work the land. We were meant to walk long distances, hunt, run, all this stuff. So, and I've had this conversation at length with JC, is that I really don't, I'm not a fan of people wanting to lose weight based on just their nutrition, their diet, and all that, because you're missing that key element. You want to eat better because you want better health, right? You want to eat better because you want to optimize, you want to thrive. Okay, but how are you thriving if you're eating well, but you're sitting on your butt watching TV? You're not, right? And the example that I've given even to my kids, right? If you have a car, right, shine it up. You do all the maintenance on it, but you don't drive it. The day that you want to drive it, do you think it's going to really drive properly? Probably not, right? So that's the thing. You don't want to use, you want to use it, you don't want to lose it. So that's me, right? In terms of exercise, everyone should be exercising in some capacity, whether it be yoga, whether it be going for walks, whether it be going for sprints. Doesn't matter. You got to be moving.
So I'm curious, what is the carnivore sort of community like up in Canada?
It's interesting. So I was at this gym, and I would go in at around 2:33 in the morning. And so for the first hour or so, I'd be by myself. And then by, let's say, 7, 8 o'clock, within that period of time, there would be 5 of us. And they were all guys. There was maybe 1 or 2 girls that would come in, mostly guys. One of them being my buddy, Drew, another buddy of mine, Rob. And there was this other guy, Mark. Mark was around my age, right? So we were both considered the older dudes, right? Or at least I considered us the older dudes. And we were talking and stuff, and big, massive dude, right? Played hockey, played football. And I was having a conversation with my buddy Rob about carnivore, and he's supportive, right? He's supportive of it. He doesn't make fun of me or anything. We're very sarcastic about stuff. And he gets it. He gets low carbs. He gets eating animal protein. He doesn't necessarily subscribe to it, but he understands it, doesn't criticize it. My buddy Drew, on the other hand, he's like, you got to eat everything. You got to eat. It's got to be moderation. And I'm like, sure, whatever.
Balanced diet.
Balanced diet, right? I was like, whatever. So you want balance? Go walk on all fours, because four limbs than 2 limbs is better, right? You're better balanced. Like it's dumb.
So I was like, okay, that, by the way.
No problem. And so all of a sudden we're talking about it. Mark comes like, you're just eating meat? And I'm like, well, yeah, and again, so he's my age, right? So he's looking at me, I'm shorter. I'm like 5'7", 5'7.5". He's like 6 feet tall, massive of a man, right? Big arms, big legs. And he's looking, but I'm pushing way more weight than he does. And he's like, huh, okay. So a couple weeks later, we're talking, and he's like, so I started just eating meat, but I'm having a couple blueberries. And I'm like, well, that's cool. He's like, yeah, for the antioxidants. I'm like, that's right on. Okay, cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then and the thing is, he works for Lone Star restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Does that mean anything to you guys?
Yeah, we
Texas Lone Star. Yeah,
we've seen him around. Maybe? No? Sure. Yep.
Yeah. So he's like the VP. So he gets his meat, package sent to him, and he literally, he sent me a picture one day. He was, snacking on like cut out like steaks, just eating through at his desk, right? I'm like, pretty cool. And eventually one day he was just like, yeah, I just cut out the blueberries. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's cool. And so as time was going on, he was like, I'm noticing a big difference. I'm like, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I'm this. And he's like, it's incredible. All this time, he played football, hockey. You got a carb load, right? He's like, it's remarkable. Like I'm thinking clearer. I'm sleeping better. I'm training better. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? So that was one. And then of course I told you about my client that was eating the cabbage, right? She went carnivore. She's like, I've never felt better. Then another client of mine,
Let me guess. She was
always
eating.
struggle.
She was eating corned beef without the cabbage.
So I had another client, always struggled with her weight because she was like 6 feet, curvy. And, she's like, I'll try it. I'm like, sure. And this is where I was saying, body dysmorphia and eating disorders do come into effect because she, and I'll admit, I'm not 100% carnivore by no stretch of the imagination. My perspective is this: I'm an adult. I will make the choices that I want to make, right? And having said that, if it's my birthday, I'm gonna have cheesecake. Yeah, there's sugar in there, whatever, you know. Um, maybe if my kids are eating something and they're like, "Daddy, can you have some?" Sure, I'll eat it, whatever, right? It doesn't bother me, and I the best way to describe my nutrition is, yeah, I'm animal based. I eat carnivore, but I'm still an adult and I make my choices, right? So this is going back to my friend. She's like, she saw me post something. She's like, "You're not doing carnivore anymore?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I decided to have nachos. What?" Right? So this is where my issue was with her. So she's doing carnivore, but she's drinking a bottle of wine a night. And I'm like, "Babe, like, there's other issues that are probably going up in here that you need to talk. You probably need to talk to someone, right?" And this is where, like, I mean, on a whole, the carnivore community, I only know the people that I know that are carnivores, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of keto people too, but it's usually more online. I've got a couple of friends that have dabbled with it in and out, but in their heads, I think it has a lot to do with the brain chemistry. They honestly believe that they need carbs because they don't feel good, right? And I can appreciate that because euphoria feels great, and if sugar makes you feel great, then you need sugar,
Yeah,
right?
most comfort foods are, sort of centered around carbohydrates, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, like, I mean, it would be great if we could have like a meetup over here in Toronto, right?
I'm down.
But like I said, I don't know many over here in Toronto. Mind you, I haven't really looked, but but
Right.
that's about it, really.
I think you have Michaela Peterson at least.
You know what? Yeah, and her dad Jordan. I don't know if they actually. Well, Jordan does because he works with my buddy Rob. Rob is a math professor at U of T. But I don't think Michaela actually lives here in Toronto. I think she kind of travels all over the place. Like,
She
she's in
seems to be quite the
Russia.
globetrotter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes,
Well,
the lion diet. Yes.
I think I just saw a picture of her at Super Training with Mark Bell and the Natty Professor. So she must be here in California right now.
Yeah. See. So.
Yeah. Can't keep that girl in one place. So, well, did he freeze? He's back. Frame by frame. There he is. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, you're a natural for doing an interview. So I appreciate you coming on. Was there anything else you wanted to cover or talk about?
You know what? I wanted to really address, and I wanted to, and I talked to JC about this because I told her I wanted to address how she was getting all these negative comments after her. Well, not all. I guess she was getting some. You were getting some, right?
Mm-hmm.
About her bikini competition, and for the most part, she was getting a lot of love. She was getting a lot of support, which is great, right? My issue was when she told me that she was getting some negative comments about, "You're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that," right? And I said to her, I go, "Listen, first of all, you, before your show, you even told me you wanted to gain more muscle mass. So I was happy about that revelation. I already knew that, and that was my goal for you regardless. I was going to talk to you and be like, okay, well, now what's next? What are we going to do, right? I think one of the things that people need to realize that when it comes to modifying your body composition, you can't really do two things at once unless you're getting some help. And right, and you know what I mean by help, right? You know what I mean, right? So you can't,
Pharmaceutical help.
yeah, you can't put on muscle and burn fat at the same time. It might happen very minimally, but you can't do it where it's like, wow, so obvious. It just doesn't happen naturally. And again, for the whole reason of the calorie surplus, calorie deficit, like you can't suck and blow at the same time. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I think people need to understand that when you're getting ready for a competition, whether it's bikini, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's figure, whether it's any of those categories, the work that you did to put on, to display on stage was done a year ago. Okay, 8 to 12 months ago. Leading up to your show, that's just cutting down. That's just stripping away the fat. So if you want to take the analogy of the sculptor, that's just, you know, refining all those fine details. So with JC, when we first started, most certainly she put on muscle mass, most certainly. But could she have put on more muscle mass? Most definitely. But she had a show, right? So if I had focused on putting on just muscle mass, there's no way she would have presented, and I think she presented very well for bikini, right? She wasn't there in bodybuilding. You know, you're not supposed to see striations in bikini. Bikini's like, you want to be feminine, soft, you know, some musculature, right? It evolves every year, of course. And so for those of you who were like, you know, being hard on her, it's like, you know what? How many competitions have you been on? You know, how much weight have you lost? Okay. Oh, sorry. How much fat have you lost? What
Have
are
they
you
even
doing?
ever talked to somebody who's going through this?
Well,
Of
yeah,
course
right.
not. They have no
Well,
idea.
they have no clue, right?
Yeah.
And that it's ignorance, and I don't mean it in a negative manner. It's ignorance. You don't know,
It is what
right?
it is.
Yeah. And
So
and that's fine. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would caution people, you know, you have an opinion, and one of the cool things about your opinion is you don't have to share it. You can keep it all to yourself, you know? So, you know,
There is that.
have your opinions, think what you want. But like, I mean, seriously, like when you were like, you're too skinny, you know, what good was coming out of that, really?
the
Really?
one that killed me was the woman who was like, I have a friend that does bodybuilding, and I know this isn't right. And I was like, tell me you've never stepped into a gym without telling me you've never stepped into a gym. I have a friend that does bodybuilding. Not I've looked into it, just I have a friend that does, and that
But
gives her like
but but
all of her
but
private
even then,
parts.
she said bodybuilding, right? So what does that mean? What does bodybuilding mean? Well, they're probably juiced up, they're probably jacked, right? So come on, guys, frame of reference. Anyways, you just wait and see. You just watch JC. You just watch her. We've got a plan, and honestly, she's gonna look phenomenal. And I'm gonna say 6 to 8 months. You're gonna see.
So would you tell her like 4 or 5 months of dirty bulking from here on for get ready for next year?
That's your
Yeah,
thoughts,
no. I
JC.
get it because I only compete with myself. I have no interest on competing with anybody else, or God forbid going on stage doing anything. But I'm constantly trying to increase strength and increase muscle volume with a focus on strength while getting leaner. And people just don't understand. You see people all the time on social media like, oh, you don't eat enough fat, you're gonna get sick, you're not eating it. And I'm like, how would you know how much I'm eating? And you know, and a lot of people don't realize too how varied it is, because somebody JC size has a caloric demand that's less than half of mine,
Yeah.
right? So
Well, I think it also depends on yes, the demand, right?
mhm.
Because when like I said, when I switched over to carnivore, I was PRing. My strength was skyrocketing. Like I was feeling phenomenal. I was leaning out. I started to get veins in my stomach without even trying, right?
Mm.
And then it stopped. And then I was like, what the hell? What's happening? And the only thing that would have been different was my body no longer had fat to fuel my workouts, despite me eating whatever amount of fat. So I actually
Mhm.
had to go out and really think about, well, okay, what's my total caloric intake? Am I going to jack up my protein, or am I going to jack up my fats? And I was kind of like, well, protein can be turned into energy but it needs that extra step. So I'm gonna have to increase my fat. So that's why I started drinking 3% goat milk. And so I'll drink 2 servings of 700 milliliters once to break my fast, and then once before bed, because it's the only way, right? Drink my calories, the only way I can actually get close to 4,000 calories, because I literally need that. Otherwise, I can't perform.
Right. And can you imagine trying to get close to 4,000 calories with one meal a day?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Hold on. I was talking to JC about that. I've done OMAD, but the question is, how big is your meal?
Well, how much can you
Right?
get in?
So,
I mean,
dude, do you remember that the other day, JC? I rhymed you off what I ate. I had my coffee, which is half a stick of butter, followed by my milk. Then I had, I think it was, what did I eat after that? I think it was my 6 eggs. Like, honestly, my wife sat there like making me 3 full proper meals, and I just ate them all. Right? Now, having said that, I don't do that on purpose. I did that because I had a late day of work, and by the time I came home, I had fasted 24 hours. So I was like, well, I got legs tomorrow. I need everything. So I ate everything.
yeah,
Right?
it's
So I think,
interesting. Our
sorry,
buddy,
sorry.
go ahead. My buddy Justin that popped in here, he's literally half my size. But when we sit down to eat, he can eat more in one sitting than I can.
Yeah.
Right. Easily. So there's that variation. And of course, OMAD is really popular. We got friends doing rolling 48s all the time and going on about fasting. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of my friends that are into fasting, they get leaner for sure. And then those muscles really pop, right?
Yeah.
But when you keep that up long term, I don't see how they could possibly be putting on more muscle. And I actually don't see them getting any stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they see those muscles pop, they see those abs bulging out, and then they're like, oh yeah, of course I'm getting stronger. But of course they don't lift like I do either. I mean, we typically see people doing, like HIIT training and stuff like that rather than, a lot of weightlifting or something like that. So it's kind of a different game. And they don't seem to have the protein requirement because they're smaller people and they just aren't lifting much.
I actually have a question for all three of you, since you all do this way more than me. What is the best fuel for strength training, in your opinion, between fat and protein?
Well, I'm going to say fat.
Fat.
Okay.
So, I mean, like someone like me, I mean, eat steak all the time. And then when I get to the end of when I realize how much calories I'm going to burn in a day, I'll supplement my fuel if I feel like I need more fuel. Right. So I start out lean and I add in more fat. It's how I do it because I'm always trying to get a little leaner. I try to stay in that little bubble of like maybe 5%, 10% below my demand. So I could do it for long term and not have my lifting suffer. So that's kind of like, but I'm constantly adjusting to do that. I'm constantly looking at the data and I'm constantly thinking, how do I feel and what did I do today? And I'm always monitoring all that in order to do it. But that's like a long-term kind of thing. And of course, people like JC, she trained, she put the muscle on, and then she's got to cut and get lean for the competition, which takes its own. So it's like, it's a shorter period of time. And it's probably more difficult to do right in that compressed time. Whereas when I don't have an end in sight. I'm just going to see how far I can go, how much I can lift, and how much leaner I can get.
Well, yeah. I think what happens is people need to identify what is the most important to them, right? So for a while, I was dabbling in powerlifting-esque movements, right? Because I wanted to see how heavy I could deadlift, how heavy I could squat, how heavy I could bench. And in doing so, I had to kind of throw some of my bodybuilding to the wayside because, recovery, energy, time in the gym, all that stuff. And it was fun, right? It was great. And it was another tool I could add to my belt if someone wants to train in like a power lifter. Now I can say, well, this is what you need to do. This is, these are the 3 lifts, etc. But my first love will always be bodybuilding because honestly, as I get older, I don't really care how much I deadlift, but I do care that I look good in a pair of jeans. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and by virtue of just eating healthy and exercising, I'm healthy. So I think I was having a conversation with a client of mine. It's like, I don't know what man doesn't want to look good, right? Having said that, it also depends on what their goals are, right? You want to be a power lifter, you want to lift, you want to lift heavy. You don't care whether you're a 32, a 34, a 42. It doesn't matter, right? So I think what happens in all communities is people impose their own goals onto other people, right? I see
For
that a lot.
sure.
I see that a lot in trainers, right? I'll be at the gym, or when I was at the gym, people, especially these ladies, because lady powerlifting has grown, right? So you get these ladies coming, I want to lose weight, I want to get in shape for my wedding, this and that. 2-3 weeks later, all of a sudden they're showing up at the gym with lifting shoes, belts, and I'm like, okay. Now, hey, you can lean out doing powerlifting, right? Again, all you have to do is burn calories and eat in a deficit, and you'll burn calories. Perfect. But like I said, that trainer just imposed their way of training onto somebody else, right? And so I think you have to have a strong conviction and say, no, I want to train this way, I want to look this way, I want to feel this way. These are my goals, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah,
so
people got to know what they want, because a lot of people have no idea what the difference is between like what JC does or what a bodybuilder does or what a strength trainer does. And they're all heavily nuanced when you get down to it, right?
yeah. Oh yeah. Like Barbara, like what would be your goal, for example?
Yeah. What kind of barber do we want to build?
We talked about this the other day.
Yeah, JC is definitely a huge inspiration. I don't want to compete. Let me put that out first.
That's fine.
But yeah, I'd love to be strong. I care about just strength for the most part. Yeah, I'd like to look better too, but strength would be my number one. Yeah.
Who did we reference as the celebrity though?
Oh yeah, I like the Sarah Connor shoulders, like that sort of thing. I'm a big upper body fan in general. Upper body exercises are my favorite. Yeah, which I know is weird for most women, but
that's pretty cool. Well, Arnold trained her, right? Well, what's her name again? I forgot. Linda Hamilton. He trained her for T2, right? So bodybuilding, right from the get-go. One of the biggest misconceptions, I'm sure JC and Tom would tell you, is how women are so afraid of bulking up. It's just like, it's not the easiest thing.
No.
It's so hard.
So
it's so hard. I would never be worried about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you say strength, like let's say if we were sitting in a consult, I would be like, okay, well, but what does strength mean to you? Like, you want to pick up a child and carry them for extended periods of time, or you want to be able to carry your groceries from the car to the house,
Mm-hmm.
five bags in one hand. Like what does that mean, right? So you have to have that reference, and often that reference will often dictate how you're going to train, right? So lots of metabolic conditioning for you, maybe some powerlifting movements, and then, happy Barbara.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Maybe lots of push-ups, lots of pull-ups to get that Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do that in a jail cell if you had to. I'm just saying.
True.
That's true.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. You got to figure out what you want to do. And then for me, I like to lift. When I used to be a gym rat, and then I got arthritis, and I was out of the gym for like 8 or 9 years. And then when all that time sitting around hurting, I was like, I realized what I missed was lifting. I was like, so when I go back, that's what I'm going to do. And when I went back, and so I had a little bit of an advantage because I used to lift, right? And I think the body remembers these things, and runners will tell you that too. Even if they take off time and they stop running, they go back to it, they're ahead of people who are starting from zero. So I walked into the gym, and I felt good because everybody else in there was 25 years old, and I was probably like 48 when I went back to the gym, and I was breaking my old PRs because I was on carnivore now. My joints had healed up, and I was smoking the 25-year-olds in the gym, and that made me feel even better. I was lifting which is what I really wanted to do, and I was doing better than all these other people. So you know, but I mean, part of that was because
Well, there is such thing as
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that there is such thing as muscle maturity too, right?
Like man strength.
So that's really, really cool. As we get older, it's one of the benefits of getting older and lifting, right? You get that muscle maturity that, you know, those young bucks, they can't achieve because they've got to wait another 20 years to get there, right? So
for sure. So yeah, I always tell people if they don't know exactly what they want to do, is go find something that they love doing, you know, figure it out, you know. Some people love hiking, you know, and they go to the gym once a week and they spend their other times hiking. I got several friends that are into cycling, people that are into mountain biking, people that are into road biking, you know. Some people are obsessed with jujitsu, you know. Those are all, you know, great, or yoga or whatever, you know. You even have a friend that's a Pilates instructor, loves it, you know. So you just gotta find what you love to do and do it. But you know, it doesn't hurt to lift some weights, because that's where you I mean, and when I say weights, it could be anything, you know. I mean, strongman competition is a whole lot different than bodybuilding, or, you know, being a bikini model or fitness model, physique model. So, you know, and
they're all relatively the same movements.
Yeah, they're just
right.
nuanced
So
differently, right?
it's how you apply it. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'd love to try a strongman. There's no way I would do well, but I'd love to try it just for the sake of it, right? It's like a sport, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'll play soccer. There's no way I'm going to be playing at the World Cup.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's about, is just enjoying it. And maybe that's the thing, is maybe you want to cycle through and try different things, you know, be a mountain biker for a while.
I told Brian I want to learn how to do handstands, because it's like, for me, it's like something that's scary. I don't like being upside down, but then it's also like a functional goal, which I think is really cool. And because before carnivore, I had so much joint pain, I never thought I would be able to train the way that I can now. And like, just being able to go to the gym is such a celebration of what my body can do. I've really been enjoying this week at the gym. I need to stop doing legs though.
And of course, my answer to you was do more yoga, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm a huge proponent. Like I said, you know, dabble in everything as best as you can. Have a cycle, right? I like to cycle between Olympic lifting, power lifting, and bodybuilding, because it stresses my body differently. They're similar but different enough. And intermittently, I'll do yoga because, you know what, I need to recover. And rather than just rolling the crap out of myself and using my Theragun and all, I rather be able to do a practice daily, if not every other day, where my breathing allows me to calm down. My focus is constantly on point, because yeah, you got to focus to deadlift. Yeah, you got to focus to squat, but it's not the same type of focus when you're, you know, standing in tree pose and you're closing your eyes and you're like breathing diaphragmatically. Like it's not easy. And the funny thing is, like, I've had clients where they're like, can we do yoga? I'm like, yeah, sure. They're sweating the crap out of themselves within the first maybe 3 sun salutations, because I'm so particular about the movements. And I'm like, dudes, like, the reason why you're sweating like this is because you don't realize, or you're not focusing on what you're supposed to be doing. And so that's why I started adding it to JC. I was just like, listen, this is going to be your form of cardio, because I don't necessarily want you walking on a treadmill. I want you moving your body the way you need to. And again, it would support that shoulder mobility, that better posture, better breathing, all that stuff, right? It's one more tool.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my story.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, playing off of that, I mean, one of the
So when are you going to...
I was going
to say, when are you going to start?
Start what? Are you talking to me or Barbara?
Yoga. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see if we work it in. I've got a new, I've been stalking, you guys probably don't know who she is, but I've been stalking Gabby Garcia, because it turns out she's my neighbor, and she's a world champion Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and she just opened a studio over here. So that might be my next foray, but
gonna go wrestle her.
I hope so. I met her at the supermarket, and I was standing there, and she like towers over me. She's got these massive traps that stick out of the collar of her shirt. And I was like, oh, so where do you work out? She's like, oh, I have my own gym,
Right on. Very
so
cool.
yeah, maybe yoga, who knows? But like, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things I do, like when I do my treadmill work, I always do it with a backpack on. When I go walk my dog, I have backpacks, I fill them with sand, and I go walking with them, because if I want to go out pig hunting or something like that, you gotta pack your gear in, and then hopefully you're packing out a pig. And I think that's the kind of activity that we kind of evolved to do, persistent hunting, maybe some sprinting. Yep. And let me tell you, the first time you get stuck in the mud, and you feel like your hips coming out of the socket, with a backpack on, you're glad you worked out, because you're like, yeah, there's no way that joints will hold up next time.
For sure.
So,
yeah, for sure.
That, funny story. I was out visiting my sister, and we were at this touristy place. My foot slipped off the sidewalk. I fell, I rolled over like an idiot in front of all the other tourists. And then when I got home, my friend was telling me his brother-in-law, the same age, tripped and fell and broke his hip. And I was like, glad I went to the gym, because the statistic they quote is that after about 55, 56 years old, once you break a hip, you got a 50-50 chance of dying by the end of the year. So at the same time, maybe we want to stay active and keep working out, so we don't die from broken hip or something sad like that.
Yeah.
Huge reason, for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, shall we wind this one up, kids? It's been a great interview.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
It was great meeting you, and you tell some very compelling sort of strategies there. So I'm glad you came on. It was really nice to meet you. I feel like we've connected, and maybe we'll have you back again. Maybe you got something you want to come on and talk about in the future.
We'll talk. We'll
stay
keep
in touch.
Yeah.
And we gotta, I guess you're getting JC ready for next year, right?
For life.
For
He's
life.
getting her ready for life.
For life. Yeah.
But we'll find out, and then we'll find out what we're gonna do with Barbara. You're gonna build a bigger, stronger Barbara. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching. Make sure you subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave us a message. Until next time, eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do, don't fall down
the carb hole.